you're going to get the chargeback, and you have to pay back that commission. So, and then this chargeback 3 is kind of a balance. You get less upfront, but you get more of a trailer at year 4 or 5. So, again, understand it's how you want to grow your business and how do you want money. I was looking, Deb, I mentioned to you that I think Equitable, a picture a month or so ago, they did a comparison. So if you move the same amount of money under no load, chargeback 3 or chargeback 5, how did the commissions work out over 5 years? And they were all within like $200 of each other. So there's no real difference. It's just one way you get your money faster, the other way you get more but slower, if that makes any sense. Okay. So this is the model we use today. It doesn't matter if it's with IA, with Beneva, with Equitable, or whoever. When we move investments, this is how we're compensated. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I got one. So you said that you'd have to pay back some of it if it was not held for a certain amount of time. How does that work?
So before, with the deferred sales charge, what they do is they would charge the client. What these companies are doing now is they're saying we can no longer charge the client. The government said we can no longer charge someone to move or use or take their own money back. So what the Benevas and IAs of the world have done is they keep us whole on the commission, and they will pay you that 5.25% right up front. But if the client pulls their money out, then you have to pay back a portion of that commission based on when they pull it out, how much. I work with a lot of retirees or like people that are closer to retirement. I still do chargeback 5 sometimes because most people are not going to pull all of their money out at one time, right? Something might happen, they need to use a little bit, and I'm going to talk about that too with Beneva. But you know, Beneva allows you to free up 10% each year. So same thing, if you're a retiree and you're pulling out, you know, following the 4% rule, or you're pulling out 5% or whatever their retirement plan says, they usually pull it out under that umbrella where there's no chargeback at all. You know, if it's sometimes if people are like, hey, I might need this, or I think the client's a little bit risky, like I don't trust they're going to leave that money there for 5 years, I'm probably just going to no load it, and then I don't ever have to worry about the chargeback or paying back commissions. And that's why the chargeback 3 is kind of nice, because it's, you get a front and there's less you pull it out, you don't have to pay as much back, and then you get a higher trailer faster. So again, everyone's different. I'm trying to build my passive income right now, so I'm pretty much going to no load all the investments I do going forward, even though, like, you know, if I did a $1 million move and I could get $26,000 up front would be really nice. But if I could also get $1,000 a month in passive income, it's pretty nice too. So it's said it's a bit of a balancing act. You got to do what's right for you and what's right for the client. Okay. Any other questions? All right. The other thing I want to show you guys quick is I'm going to share my other screen now. So this is one of my actual clients' accounts. This was money that I DSC'd. So this is really hard to see and tell, but there's 10 amounts here. 5 of these are all the same, but they have RF after them. And then if you go down below, the next 5 are the exact same. Like I have Canadian fixed income, and then down here I have a Canadian fixed income, all reversed. But these ones have RF, these ones have PF. So the RF are the reduced fee, so it's a DSC. So if the client took money out, they're going to pay a bit of a penalty. But if I take it out of the penalty free, the PF, This is where I freed up to 10% each year for that client. So this client, like their total portfolio is 74,000 or 75,000 in their tax-free savings account. And if you look at all the PFs, I got 246, 66, 7, 11. Yeah, I'm at about $14,000. So I'm just about 20% because I freed up twice for this lady. I did it last year in 2022, and I freed up another 10% in 2023. Now the difference in trailers is the RF pays 0.5% and the PF pays 1% in the trailer fee. So every year I free up another 10%, I'm getting an extra 0.5% commission. So this is for if you've moved any money today or you have existing accounts with Beneva. It's just, again, to understand, how do we get paid? How do we receive commission? Makes no difference to the client whatsoever. Where it does make a difference is if she did actually want to pull some money out of her tax-free savings, I could pull up to 20% without any penalty. And then soon in December, it'll be 30%. This is her Lyra as well. And it's the same. I've got five accounts under RF, reduced fee, and 5 accounts under penalty free. So her Lyra, she's got about 260,000, and I have about 50,000 of it that is under penalty free. And there again, I've just met with this client actually last month. We did her annual review. She's retired, but she's not pulling any money from these funds yet. She has another RRSP, which she kept for herself. That's what made her feel good. So that's where she dips into every now and then. She's still working part-time. But this is part of how you're, like, when I manage people's investments, how I manage it for them and for myself around the commission fees. And then the last thing I was going to show everybody is, so this is my business, my WFG, my real numbers. So on September 19th, this was my commission, $497.44. That was straight passive income. It was just trailer money. So I didn't book any points. Well, I got points because it generated revenue, but I didn't close any business or do any transfers or write any life insurance. So I'm at $500 a month of passive income, which is, 10% of my goal that I want. I do have some funds I'm moving right now for a couple of clients. I have some money I just moved that hasn't booked yet. And each year I will free up another 10%. So my goal is by the end of next year, I should be pretty close to that 5,000 a month. So any questions on any of that?
Yeah, Mike.
Yep.
What's the easiest pattern, to move funds for people, to convince them, to show them that they'd be, better off if they moved it? I mean, I'm guessing that it's probably like, some kind of a savings account at RBC or something like that, where they're giving you virtually nothing.
Yep.
And you've got places that they can, transfer them, and benefits them, benefits you. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, so that client I just showed you, it was actually my mom's friend. It was a referral from my mom, of all people. So the lady met with me. Her question was, can I retire? So I said, well, let me review your portfolio. What I did is I took her 3 investments. I got Beneva to actually do a comparison to their balanced fund. She was making like 1% or 1.5% on her tax-free savings. She was making 2.1% on her Lyra, and her RSP was actually making about 4.5%. I showed her the Beneva balanced fund was making about 6% on the 5 and 10-year average. And then I just showed her the difference. Like they actually do a really good comparison. And that's what I do with most clients is, I look at their stuff. I had one client, he had stuff at Sun Life making about 7%. And I'm like, honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty good. Like, 7% for like a balanced portfolio. He was younger. So my process with him was like, hey, like we could move some of this more to a growth portfolio because you've got time. Right. But to your point, Wade, that's how I typically do it. There's a lot of people sitting on cash. I could bring up IA. IA has a great high interest savings account right now. It's paying 4.6% and it's not locked in. You know, like my neighbor next door, he's like, oh, I'm getting 5%, but my money's locked in for a year. And I'm like, well, that's nice. Like I'm getting 4.6 and it's not locked. So if you want to use it, you can take it right back out.
Right.
But that's typically how I do it with my clients is I look at what they're invested in. Here's the other thing I do, and this is what's kind of worked really well.
That's enough milk, honey.
Like Deb said,
making
is I got to
stuff already?
MD
Yeah.
based on strictly points. I needed 100,000 points to get to MD level. So I moved about $2.5 million in 6 months, which gave me pretty close to 100,000 points. But what I do is I worked in oil and gas for 23 years. When I was there, I had a pension. When I left, you have to take that pension and roll it into a lira. And my pension was with Sun Life, and you know, when I left the company, I moved it. Same thing when I worked at IBM, they had a pension. When I left there, I got rolled into a lira. So I went back to all my friends, everyone that worked for me at oil and gas and at IBM, and I'm like, hey, like you left the company, what did you do with your lira? And you know what answer I get 9 out of 10 times? I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's a locked in retirement account. You can't take it out. You can't cash it. It's somewhere. And like one of my good buddies, like, 15 years ago, we worked together. I'm like, dude, what'd you do with your lyric? He goes, I don't know. Because I get a statement like every year. And he goes, it must still be sitting there. So same thing. I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, you're making pretty much zero on your investment that's been there for 15 years. So that was an easy one to move. Yeah, another couple other people, same thing. It's like they're like, oh, it's still at Sun Life. I'm like, well, what's it invested in? They're like, I don't know. It's like, what's your rate of return? I don't know. So that's when I said, hey, let me just run the comparison. And most people are averaging that 2 to 4%, and I can show them Beneva, I can show them IA, even Equitable's got some really good investments that are, on a 10-year average have been made 6, 8, 10, some 12% funds, right? I usually try and stick around 6 because that's real. That's pretty realistic, right? And like I said, I've had one client whose portfolio was averaging over 7, and he didn't move his money. And I'm like, hey, you have to do what works for you, right? But the other, I've been in here a year and a half. I've got 30 some clients, and I think 32 or maybe 35, but 34 or 35 are investments. I have one life insurance client.
So you were in oil and gas, then obviously you didn't have a financial background. Or did you?
No, but I've always been involved. Like I've always been really hands-on with my own money. I love real estate. That's the other reason. Like I like that we can actually help people with mortgages. When I look at people's portfolios or I do their net worth, I have a couple clients where like they've got really good investments. They're set up while they're retired, but they still have a pretty big mortgage, right? So it's like, okay, well let's switch the focus. Like, what's your goal to pay your mortgage off? Me and my wife are mortgage free at 48 because I killed myself for 3 years to pay my mortgage off. Now we're debt free, and I just had the last 2 years off, and I decided to go back to work. I was doing this, and I'm still doing this. This is still my goal, but I got a really cool job opportunity to go try out, so I'm going to do that for a while, especially through the winter because I can't golf.
Yeah.
But and that's just like I said. Once you learn the different parts of the business, I was talking to someone else on Angela's team one day, and she's a part of the moms groups, right? She goes, oh, I just can't break into the moms groups. She goes, I tell them I'm a financial advisor and none of them care. And I was like, but you have to know your audience. If you're at moms groups, talk to them about RESPs because they do care about. They all have kids. It's like, so start there. You say, hey, like, we've got this really good RESP for our kid. Like, do you guys have one? If they don't, do they want to start one? If they do have one, do you want me to review it and compare it against my investments? Like, know your audience. That's why I go back to oil and gas and software companies that I know had pensions and people have moved and left. Even, and sometimes people just, it takes time. Like I have an aunt and uncle, I told them last summer, I was like, oh, I got my financial license. I'm doing retirement planning and investments.
I
And
thought you were saying
it took
that.
almost a year for them to warm up to me and they like me. But then they're like, hey, can you look at these 2 riffs we have? And I'm like, yeah, you guys aren't making any money. So I moved those 2 riffs. So some of it takes time. And then I've had other people are just like, go deal with this. I had a client told me last week, she's mad at Scotiabank. She's like, I'm sending you my investments. And I'm like, great. So
that's pretty much how it works. You have to review 1 or 2 of their statements that they get, from their investment firm or from the bank, right?
yeah, it's a complimentary service that we offer, right? It's right in the slide deck, or in our DLD flip chart. And yeah, like that's kind of where I start. It's, first, like I'm more about retirement and retirement planning. Like I want to build someone a really good retirement plan. And then you start looking at all the parts and pieces. Like you look at their house, you look at their investments, you look at their savings, you look at their debt and their assets. But yeah, it's easy to start with investments because most people, not most, like some people, yes, most people have an RSP, or they'll have a tax-free savings, or they'll have some type of investment, or they worked a job one time where they had a little pension and it's still sitting there somewhere. Just start with those. They're simple and easy. And you can look at them. I could have pulled one up, but what's your rate of return been on it? And it's been like, a lot of them are like, oh, I made 1% or 2% over the last 10 years. Like we can beat that all day long.
Yeah, right. It was good stuff. Do you have any recommended reading for rookies who, kind of want to get the head full of information before you actually approach somebody?
A recommended reading. I want to say Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it doesn't really apply to this. It does, because my daughter's reading it right now, and every day she comes home and says, oh, I read a chapter, and this is what they talked about. We have these great discussions. But honestly, like, make sure like IA, Equitable, Beneva, like they all offer free training, like all those little 1-hour seminars they do. That's where I go. Like if I want to see something, or I want to learn something, or kind of see the latest and greatest, I jump on those for like an hour, and I usually got 9 other things going on, so I listen to parts and pieces of them. But kind of treat it like it was yourself, right? If you have investments, what would you want to do with your money?
Where do you find the schedule for those, or is that once I get licensed, I'll get that in the WFG?
Yeah, so as soon as you get licensed, and I don't know, Deb, if we can forward like that.
No,
some of those.
I'll wait. I'm a month away at most with paperwork, etc. So yeah.
Yeah. So let me have a quick look here. I'll see if actually, yeah, there's one right here. Let me show you.
That is one of the biggest things that I want out of this. They asked me, what do you want out of the entire thing? I'm like, I want access to all those things. I want to know, and I want
you guys see this screen?
Run the numbers.
So this here is the one we just got from IA for their e-learning. So Tuesday's Universal Life, and that also gives you C credits. Wednesday is investment training, fundamentals of portfolio construction. So these are the ones that I pay attention to. Then there's the critical illness, the sweet spots, disability, yeah, make it easy. And then your IA tools. Like there is some really cool stuff out there that these guys offer and present. Like, and honestly, Equitable has some of the best stuff I've seen. I don't know if I could actually find that shared, but
that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions while I'm looking at this?
Yeah, I have a quick question, Mike.
Yep.
It's when you do of no load, 3-year chargeback, 5-year chargeback, does the client know about that? Yeah, or did you advise him that I'm doing a 3-year or 5-year chargeback, or do they not care?
I It depends. I get asked all the time, how do I get paid? Because most people expect there to be a fee, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
my money used to be with private wealth management, and we paid a fee over and above. So that was part of the reason I got into the business, because I wanted to manage my own money. But I have no problem telling people, like, I get paid a commission up front to move your money. It's at no cost to you, right? Because every fund has MER fees. We get paid out of the MER fees. The client never pays us, right? And then same thing, even on the trailers, the 1% trailer, I have no problem telling the client, like, I get a trailer on the money that I move and manage, right? Like that's my job, is to manage their portfolio, and the more they make, the more I make. So if they don't ask, or they don't too concerned about it, which a lot of clients aren't, they want to know if they have to pay, and I was like, no, like here's the funds I'm putting you in. Here's the historical returns, and again, these are net of any fees. I have one client. They're like, I hate fees. I'm not paying extra fees, and I'm like, why do the fees matter? I said, if you're making 4% and paying zero in fees, or you're making 7% and paying a 2.3% MER fee, like which one would after? Which one do you want to be in? Would you rather be making 7% or paying fees, or 4% no fees? So, and
Okay.
again, it's
Well,
just
the
right?
MER is. I always thought that was separate besides the sales charges before, and now we're getting paid out of the MER. It's included,
We
like
always were.
these charges. They were included in the MER.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've always been
I
paid out of
guess.
the MER fees.
So there's only that one charge that gets put onto the. Okay.
Yeah, so if a client moves
Sounds good.
$100,000, they don't pay any fees out of that, right? Their money grows based on the fund performance. If the fund goes down, then their money will go down, but it's never because of the fees.
And just to add
But
to
when
that,
you, yeah.
when you sit down with your client, you're also going to find out what they're like. Obviously not a lyric, because they can't pull from that because it's locked in. But if you want to find out what they're doing with that money. Are they wanting it in investments for long term? Then you know that you can do a chargeback 3 or a chargeback 5, because it's going to be in their long term. So they're not going to take their money out within 3 years or 5 years. So you know that you've got that piece there. If they're putting their money away for a year or two and wanting to earn that interest and gain their money that way, and then they're going to take it out for like a down payment on a home or vacation or whatever, then you know that they want to take their money out before the 3 years or the 5 years. So you're not going to put it in an investment that's going to be a chargeback 3 or 5. You're going to put it in a no chargeback. And that's just when you sit down with the client and do their info gather, that's where you're going to gather that information and be able to know what it is that they want to do with their money. And then of course, with what Mike just said, with the explanation of all of how we're getting paid and the fees and all of that sort of stuff. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I kind of. But see, when I have moved my money, there was always less ending up in the accounts than what got transferred. So that upfront stuff, that I always thought there was 2 points. Yeah. Anyhow,
Well, and it
yeah,
depends what you
learned
were in,
something
Britta.
new.
You might have had investment that, just like the deferred sales charge, if it was set up that way, you would pay a bit of a fee, right?
And that fee would be on the
Yeah.
other institution, right? So the institution that you're pulling it from would have charged you the fee
Yes.
taking your money out.
And now there was another question that slipped my mind. Anyhow, that's good.
Okay. Anything else?
So those
Did you get-
meetings that you get when, like, I got an email stating that there's a meeting with Frankfurt Investments, like it's at 11 o'clock or something tomorrow. Do you get points for watching those? Or
So you can,
I just got licensed, so I'm just like trying to figure out what, like, I get a lot of emails stating that they're running meetings and to register for them. Is that classified as points or what is that?
no, so the meeting.
They're
so
just investment meetings, like,
No, so the training sessions give you CE credits,
okay,
right? So every year you need so many training sessions or CE credits to renew
Yeah.
your license.
yes,
So that's what that is. When you actually book business, there's a calculator to calculate points. So whether you do life insurance or critical illness or move investments,
yeah.
that's where you get your points.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes you
I'm
get,
sorry, I got an email today and I was like reading it and I was like, oh, register for this thing at 11 o'clock. It was with Frankfurt, I don't know what it was. But I was like,
and those are sometimes we get even from IA or any of our other companies. Franklin Templeton's not one of ours.
okay,
But if even if we got like something similar to what Mike just showed us, but it doesn't necessarily have it for credits,
okay,
it's still worth seeing because you're still going to learn. Sometimes you'll get the same thing, but the CE credits, they just give you credit towards your license for next year. And
okay. So the one that the CP one then, or the one that I just did, I did one exam and I got like 100%, but there's another, it's like you're only partially finished. So all those credits go towards my next year.
well, we can figure that out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay, hon. That's okay. What I'd love to do is maybe that's something that Laura can do next week, because Laura's going to be running our meeting, and she can go over the CE credits. She can show you what all of that is about and everything like that. So I'll talk to Laura and have her sort of go through all of that so you guys know what that's all about, so that, because there's a lot of information that you there as well. So
Yes,
so
and I was like, what is this? I did one and I like got 100%. I was like, okay, like,
awesome. That's fantastic. I love hearing that. That is awesome. And we would love for you to share that next week. So next week, why don't you write down the company name, the course that you took, how many credits you got, and then explain a brief bit about